Hi Michelle, so I'm just going to make a couple of videos just to talk through the questions that you've sent in. Sorry it took so long for me to reply, but we'll start off with the panel samples. So actually sending out another email to your participants 2 months after they complete the survey. So obviously in your survey you have set up some panel triggers. So what we're going to do is we're going to click into panels. Then in here we're going to click on samples. So now we're going to create a new sample, and the first thing it's going to ask is which panel do you want to pull this from. So this would be the one that you've set up to actually put people into once they complete the survey and they've been added to it using the panel triggers. So I'm just going to just choose like the test 01 just as an example for now, but obviously it will be the correct panel. We give this a name, so maybe you might be creating a couple of these, so maybe we want group 1 or a date or something like that, just to let you know so something that'll kind of keep it a little bit easier to keep track of, basically. So once you've given it a name, sample size, that doesn't really matter. You're not going to be sending this out to huge numbers of people. This is just basically if you want to only limit your samples to a specific amount of people. Randomness, again, does not matter. So we're looking now to add a sample condition. So in here we have an extra couple of things in here called recipient history and recipient sample membership. Membership is basically whether they have actually opted in or opted out of the panel. So you can just follow like opt-ins, for example. So we're actually interested in recipient history. And then there's another couple of options in here, which are last survey taken and last email invitation date. So we're interested in people who have taken their survey over 2 months ago. So we can say last survey taken was before, and then basically you would put in 2 months date. So this is the 1st of June, so maybe we want the 1st of April. So we can put in 2016, and then actually it comes up, so let's go back to April 1st. So we're interested in people who have taken the survey 2 months ago, so before 2 months ago. But also we should add in another one and just say and recipient history last email invitation date was never. So basically we're saying that because if people you've sent out one sample and they've completed the survey, then another 2 months passes by, even though you've sent this email, they would still be sent another one because 2 months has passed since they were included in this first sample. So we're trying to target people who have never been targeted by a sample as well. So that would be the second piece in here. And then you click generate sample, and that will generate however many people meet that condition on that date. So then you can, this will be saved kind of pretty much like a panel. So when you actually go to distribute a survey or send an email, you can choose group 1 to send to, and it will only target those people. But that will not automatically update. Another 2 months later, if you want to make another one, you just come in and do the exact same thing again, and it will only target people who have completed the survey more than 2 months ago and have never received an email invitation date. So it will not include people in group 1 as long as you've actually invited them to another survey. So that's how you would send out your survey 2 months later after they've completed the survey or thereabouts. The next thing I'm going to talk about is in the edit survey area is about the actual the codes, so the print screen. Unfortunately, this is not a feature that we have at the moment, just purely because this is not exactly intended functionality of quotas. We're kind of using a workaround for now. What I have done is I have requested a feature, and I've also requested this in the past, where instead of having to set up quotas, basically, we can say in a randomizer, we can have a condition that basically just says only show each element once, so that it can be used for things like code, so we don't have to set up quotas or anything like that. So hopefully that will help towards that. But at the moment, all I can really say to do is just to actually print the screen or take a screenshot of your quotas or of your survey flow as it's set up, just so you can keep track of which codes you've used and which ones you have not. So now I'm going to go back into your other survey, which is the one that actually asks the questions. Just bear with me while I get back into your account. So now I'm in your first survey, and I'm just going to address the first question, which was delayed completion. So in here, unfortunately, the way you have it set up at the moment, this will not actually work. You were kind of correct in saying that in your email. So if you ask them if they want to complete this later, as soon as someone hits that end of survey element, there's no coming back from that. They're not going to be able to come in later on and continue down. They're going to be brought back to this end of survey element. And if you set up something funky to try and make them bypass that, you're actually going to lose the data that they've already collected above. So that's not going to be a valid workaround. Your two options are, first of all, to split this out into a second survey. So if they say they want to take it later, then you can send them a new link to the second survey where that just asks for the demographics questions. Like you say, then you have to link that back, and that can kind of get a little bit tricky. You could do that using authentication in the second one if you really wanted to link names. It wouldn't be that big of a deal. But the second option is that these anonymous links, if you go to your survey options, you'll see in here there's an option to save and continue. So this basically can figure out where exactly someone left off. So if you say basically leave a message on this page that asks, do you want to come back later? So you can just basically say, if you are not ready to complete the survey now and would like to come back and finish it later, simply close down your browser now, and when you're ready to continue, just click on that link again. You have to specify that they must use the same browser and device in order to do this, because it is based off of cookies, but it will prevent you from having to split it out into two different surveys. It's probably the best option if you don't want to have to split this out. I can't think of any other way, but there is a pre-built in kind of save and continue functionality there that you can take advantage of if you wish. It would just be a matter of specifying here that they can leave if they want and come back later. But if you would prefer to set up a redirect to a second survey, just let me know and I'll be able to talk you through those steps. Next, I'm going to address the email trigger. It was kind of like your last question in that email item number 6, which is that you want to kind of assign people to two different panels. So if you really, really want to make two different panels of people, it will be necessary to make split the survey into two. The only reason for that is, even though I said that the email triggers will work if a response is closed and they haven't actually completed the survey, unfortunately a panel trigger will not. They must complete a survey in order to be added to that panel. So you could set up a condition and say, if they said that they want to come back at a later time, end the survey, add them to a panel that's like the incompletes. And if they say they want to continue, don't bother adding it to the panel, just let them continue straight onto that second survey. And then you can keep two different panels with different people with them, like your partials and your completes in there. The other option would be to only add people who complete the survey into the panel, but you could set up a kind of like an email trigger that will send 2 weeks after they kind of leave the survey to like kind of remind them to come back and complete it. This is a little bit more complex, so what we would be doing is, in the email triggers, first of all, we would set our survey options to expire after 2 weeks, so we can kind of set it to 2 weeks here, so that 2 weeks of inactivity, their response is closed, and that triggers the email trigger to send to them. And what we would do then in this email trigger, because they've their response has been kind of expired, we would need to send a retake survey link in this here. So we can talk through, if you're interested in doing this, we can go in through view results and have a look at what a retake link looks like, and we would basically need to manually build that for each person by piping in their unique kind of response ID in here to send them a retake link after 2 weeks, so they can click on it and just continue from where they left off. But that is a little bit more complex, so have a think about that and figure out which one of the two options you prefer. There's no point in me talking you through that if you decide you're going to split your survey out into two groups. Finally, I believe that your last two questions are kind of very, very similar, and probably the same step will cover both of those. It was about screening out if they've already taken the survey, so kind of like some sort of authentication there. And secondly, identifying if there's a duplicate email, which is pretty much the exact same thing. If someone's already taken the survey, or that email has already been entered. So to do this, my best suggestion would be to actually use an authenticator kind of in a sneaky way to achieve this. Because like you said, validation, display logic and branch logic can't use a panel field as a value if the participant is coming in through an anonymous link, because it just can't link to that panel. You need to be using a kind of a unique link in order to identify that person. So that's not going to be an option. But one thing we can do to link to a panel is by using an authenticator. So what I would suggest doing is, before we get to the part that asks them for their email address, I would put these two in their own block. We would remove this question altogether and just set this up in the authenticator. So basically you would have this first question in a block on its own. Then we would go into survey flow. We would add a new element and we would choose an authenticator. This will be the question that asks them for their email address, and then we would have the other questions in a block just below it for when they actually do authenticate in successfully. or actually they don't authenticate in successfully, because that's the trick. People who do authenticate successfully, it means that they're already part of the panel, which means they've already taken the survey, so we can screen them out if they pass authentication. And if they do not pass authentication, then therefore they have not actually taken the survey before, so we can allow them to continue on to the rest of the survey. So we would choose the panel that you've been adding your participants to. Just by clicking on here, I'm just going to choose a random one for now. And then we would choose the email address as the authentication feature here. So next what we would do is click on options. We would say the authentication prompt text. You would click on my library. You click create new message, and this is where you would paste in the question text that you have in that question that asks for their email address to make it look like a question in your survey. So you would just basically copy this and paste it in as the prompt text for the authenticator. And we would basically then only want them to give them one login attempt, because we don't want this error text to appear if they're not in. We don't want them to know they're being authenticated. And then the too many failures error text, we're going to be really sneaky here and not say that they've failed the authentication. We are going to say, we are basically going to disguise this as kind of like an email confirmation thing. So just basically like create a new message again and just say, please retype your email address on the next page to confirm. So this is the only reason we would need to set this up, is because we need to base the panel trigger off of a question. We can't base it off this authenticator. So the question, if they fail, they haven't taken the survey before, they'll get to the next question, which asks them to enter their email address again, just to confirm. And then we can base the panel trigger off that. Like I say, people who have actually taken the survey before will pass this authentication. And then we can click on add a new element here, and we can insert an end of survey message, and we can customize this to screen those people out. So if they've already taken the survey before, we can screen them out here. And like I said, then if they fail, they will just move on to the next block of questions, which you can actually leave this this question in here and just say, please enter your email address again, and so on. So I hope that answers all of your questions. I know there's a lot of information to take on board here, but if you do have any questions on this, or if there's anything you're not sure of, or you're not sure which option is going to be the best, just have a think through, and if you decide on anything, just let me know and I can talk you through steps.